I don't think of being good. I just work really hard at it, I think. And if you're a coach and you're not successful, you get fired. So, it was, just I never really thought about trying to be good. I just always said this is something I really love, and I want to help our players be good, so I want to help them achieve goals. And I've never really felt that it's ever about me because basketball is such a team sport, it was not invented as an individual sport. And if it was about me, I should take up tennis.
Tara VanDerveer is one of the most winning coaches of all time. Her understanding not only of the sport, but how to manage people, how to raise potential, to create a space where people can do and be their best is something to consider. She gets into not only how she built her career, but her love of encouragement and variety, her inclination towards spontaneity, but also her deep commitment to the greater good of leading a team and the selflessness of truly wanting everyone to be their best. I hope you enjoy. This is The Other Pod. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
How is retirement?
Well, I'm not really retired, but I'm retired from coaching. So it's life is very different, but it's fun.
You're adjusting well to it because I imagine it's
Yeah,
a real change
yeah,
of pace.
I like it. I get to do a lot of other things that I like to do. So yeah, but it's fun.
Well, I would love to jump in if you don't mind, unless you have any questions for me before we begin.
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
So it is a fairly unconventional podcast, and I'm going to ask a lot of different kinds of questions, I hope.
Okay.
If anything you don't want to answer, it's not interesting, just let me know. I will not be offended because I have so many questions I want to ask you. I think this is the most pre-questions I've had because I'm really looking forward to this. Um,
Okay.
so to contextualize a little bit, you grew up primarily in Schenectady, New York, in the later 1950s. Can you please tell me a little bit about your familiar life, your sibling, and how you came to find basketball?
So I'm the oldest of five, and my parents are very active. Both my mom and dad, kind of their idea of a Friday night was go to the Y, jump on the trampoline, climb the ropes, play basketball, go swimming. I lived in a very, very active community where everyone, we had an ice skating pond, went skiing, just did, were outside playing all day long, biking. All summer long, I was on a lake, swimming, water skiing, just sailing, doing everything. So that activity, but I don't know, in about the fourth grade, I just got crazy about basketball. I just loved it. And I just really just wanted to watch it, like one game a week, but I play with the boys and I just was crazy about it. And I don't know why.
Like looking back now, there's not some sort of thing that you're like, oh, it was that piece of it or that way that it did it, just whatever it was totally absorbed you.
Well, we did like three-player weave in gym class, and I really liked that. And I liked offense. I liked ice hockey too, but we didn't really play it, But I liked the idea of playing offense and defense and the constant moving and the strategy of it was really intriguing to me too.
So you came with a lot of siblings. And I was curious, in looking back, do you feel that your relationship with your siblings informed your coaching?
A little bit. My first coaching job was a younger sister, and then my youngest sister is a basketball coach too. So, but I think that just being part of a really close family, knowing what that felt like, knowing that was important to me in my life. That I wanted people on the team to experience that too.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Because I was curious, it's like you're maintaining all these other people and their personalities and their needs and their wants too. And it
Mhm.
seems like that would be a pretty clear transition over to a team
Yeah.
and figuring out how to do that.
Well,
So
I mean, I think that just being not being an only child, like you had to be, you had to be unselfish in a family, all the things in a family that I think make for a functional family, are things that are very similar to what you do in a team.
And so you also seem to be very direct, very blunt. You do not seem to suffer fools, which I think is a very admirable trait. And I'm wondering, did you ever encounter difficulties with having that kind of personality? And were you always that way, or did you have to learn how to be that way?
Um, I think that, um, I mean, I wouldn't try to be blunt or direct, or I mean, I think being direct just saves you time and, not, but I think that we all probably struggle a little bit with, not wanting to sugarcoat bad news. It's hard to be, to make decisions that negatively impact, your players or staff, or, have to make decisions that, are hard for people. And I don't take any pleasure in causing anyone else pain, so, um, but I think that just if you have a relationship with the people that you're coaching, the people that you're working with, and you have this trust, then you can be very honest and just say, we're going to do this and we're going to do it this way because it's best for our team. And so I think the decisions I make are what are decisions that are in the best interest of our team.
And you also said at one point that you can say more to someone and harder things to someone, if you have that strong relationship with them. And I'm wondering, can you give any examples, either how you've learned over time or anything specific as to how you've been able to say challenging things that are in the best interest of the team? Because I think for everyone that's hard, but I also think particularly for women in leadership, like that's a very, very important trait and something that sometimes is hard to get to be kind and to be fair, but also to be able to really say things that need to be heard that are not necessarily positive. And I'm curious how you've managed all that.
Well, we might be in a situation, as an example, where we have to make a change in our starting lineup. And, everyone on the team wants to start. You know, and sometimes it will go better with some people than with other people. But the people that it probably goes the best with are the people that you have a very good relationship. And you just say, I'm making this decision for the best interest of our team. And I know it's hard for you, but I'm going to ask you to, step up for our team and be unselfish and be, play hard when when you do get an opportunity to play. And, so I've seen that play out in good ways and sometimes not in good ways when you don't have that a really great relationship, or you're dealing with sometimes maybe some players who, maybe aren't as mature, and they're just not ready for that kind of situation. They're used to things, they're used to things maybe going their way. I think the hardest thing, and one of the hardest things in coaching, is the fact that, players maybe have, they have these expectations that are not the reality. And when the gap between expectations and reality, I think can cause the problems of, they're not getting what they want, but they're not able to do what maybe I need them to do.
And so, how do you manage that? Is the expectation on your side that you can get them to be the person they want to be? Or is it helping them understand that maybe how they envision themselves needs to be changed and sort of recontextualized with what's possible for them?
Well, I think a lot of it is if someone has goals, like one of the things I want to do is I want to help people, achieve their goals. So if you said to me, I would like to be an all-American basketball player. I said, well, that's a great goal. So then what's the plan? What kind of time are you putting into it? What sacrifices are you making? Because, right now you're shooting 22% from the free throw line or something, so you're not going to be an all-American. But, if you have, I think that I want people to have high goals, and I want them to, you know, but kind of like not maybe unrealistic ones at a time. So, just to kind of use a ladder approach to, all right, if this is where we want to be here, then let's start with this one and then move up the ladder, and help you. But you have to also buy into, making the sacrifices and putting the time into that. It's not going to just happen because you're eating potato chips and going to the swimming pool.
No, no, that's fair. But it sounds like you are a very hands-on, day-to-day, deeply involved coach. Is that how coaching generally is, or is your approach in some way different?
I don't really know how to compare myself to other people and how they do things. I would say the exception, what I've been very fortunate in my life is I have watched a lot of coaches. I've observed practices from the time I was honestly in the seventh grade, or even younger than that, watching basketball, watching practices, watching coaches, reading books about it, just really trying to understand and then playing, for different coaches, but really trying to understand what works and what doesn't work. And I would say I'm a very good copier. I watch how people interact. I think about, this is when I get this opportunity, this is how I'm going to do it, and kind of plan things out. So, I just feel like I just try to really kind of figure things out. And I've had I don't know how other people do things, but I have my own way of doing it.
And so I wonder too, when you were a basketball player, which I'd like to hear about, and I have a few questions about that, but when you had to go from playing basketball to coaching, was that like a death or a loss for you, or did it feel more like an evolution? What happened for you in that transition?
Well, I was never really a basketball player. I mean, I loved to play. I played pickup. I would go to the rec facility and play with the boys. And we had an 8 game regular season schedule, so it wasn't like it wasn't like I had this career that these young people have now. But I think that I also, one of the things I think that was really different probably for me than a lot of coaches that I knew, that were going through kind of the same track that I was, with Title IX, all of a sudden there's a need for coaches. So timing was everything. And my timing was great. But, so that but the thing was, I majored in sociology. I planned to go to law school. I didn't really know that coaching was an opportunity or even an option when I was in school. So I kind of fell into it backwards. But I enjoyed playing, but I was more of I love to just play, but I also love to think about basketball. So it wasn't a hard transition for me. It was easy actually.
I mean, and that's part of what's interesting is when I read about your past, that you were competing in the Final Four, that you went from one college to another because they had a stronger basketball team. I had sort
Mm,
of presumed that the desire was to play. But I think what seems part of what you're saying is that the game was what really sort of captured your imagination. And so
mhm,
that game could be accomplished in many different roles, right? Like you could be a coach, you could be a player, you could be other things. Um,
right.
and that's part of what I wonder. So when you became a coach and you were really thinking more strategically, uh, how did that change your love or understanding of the game itself, or did it?
Well, whenever I even played, I was always interested in the strategy of it. And I was always talking to our coach about, well, and I would tell our team kind of, like they'd be like, well, what defense are they in? And I'm like, well, they're in a triangle and two. And, I mean, it's like I was kind of that type of player all the time. I was more of a coach than a player. And as a player, I would have driven myself crazy because, just of how I played. I turned the ball over. I didn't play much defense, but I knew what defense they were in, or I knew what I was always looking at different plays that we could run. And I watched basketball a lot. I watched, the men's team play. I watched, basketball on television. And I was kind of a basketball junkie.
And would you say that men and women's teams are coached differently, or are they coached similarly?
I'd say they're coached similarly. I think that in some ways, from what I have experienced, men are maybe socialized differently than women. And this idea, you got to be tough, and actually, young men would benefit. I think coaching staffs would benefit from kind of a mixed staff. So the men's coaching staffs would benefit from having women on it. And I think women's staffs benefit from having men too. So, but it's, I think that there's we're kind of coming together more, like the men are not like, all this, like coaches have said, well, Tara, you need to give the team red butt, like yell at them more, that's a man's way of doing stuff, And I'm like, oh, and now that wouldn't work. People would be in the portal really fast, giving red butt. Um, but I think that there's probably just there's more similarities than differences, like young people that you coach want you to care about them, get to know them, help them accomplish their goals, be the best players they can be. A lot of them, a lot of great athletes are very insecure, that's why they're so good. They're in there practicing, but just to, I think really have positive relationships with them, and they want to be coached in a positive way.
Well, in a way, I mean, it sounds a lot like, forgive me because I have young children, but it sounds a lot like parenting,
I think it is a lot like parenting.
that you're stepping in this very intimate way that, you're sort of colliding with their dreams as well and
Mhm.
how you can facilitate getting there. And I imagine as an outsider, that must be a very large emotional lift. Like, have you felt that, or I imagine you must be like exhausted at the end of the season. If you're carrying all of these
Right.
different personalities and these needs and these wants, and you're planning the game and you're constantly pivoting as the game evolves over the duration of it, what is that like for you? And how do you sort of recover at the end of that? And furthermore, what is it like now being semi-retired and not giving that enormous amount of energy all the time?
I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that at the end of almost every year, you're just like, can I do this again? It is exhausting. It's exhausting. But I think that there's so many great rewards to coaching, just like there are great rewards for parenting. But it's not to say that's not a struggle or not hard, not exhausting. But just seeing the improvement that the players make. I I made a decision as an adult that I thought I would learn how to play the piano, and it's really hard. And so I thought I could teach myself, and that didn't work. So I got a great teacher. And what I realized with my teacher, within like a first year, I was doing a CD, I did another CD. And what what I realized was that, a great coach, a great teacher can take you somewhere you can't get by yourself. And that's what I try to do as a coach, is be someone that helps our players on our team. And now, even though I'm retired, I work with other coaches and try to help the coaches, be kind of the best versions of themselves, help them, listen to them, talk to them, try to help them get through some, uh, sticky things, that happen. And just but that's what I learned from kind of my piano experience. And more than anything, it's more rewarding. What I would say to you is that the rose has to be bigger than the thorn, and as exhausting as it is, the rose is big.
And when you're coaching, like you coached at Stanford, right? And Stanford is one of those wild places where there's tremendous affluence, tremendous accessibility, tremendous privilege, and then also the kids who get in who come from a very different place. How did you, or did you have to sort of figure out how to suture together these like probably very disparate experiences, but also like wealthy families come with their own set of problems,
Mhm.
entitlements, requirements, etc. for their children, and it was well parents who have less means. Like there's a ton of complicated stuff going on in whichever kid you get. Did you
Right.
have to learn how to manage that? And if so, how? And additionally, you're managing women where there's a lot of expectation about body, about physicality, and especially these are physically powerful women. Did you find
Right.
you had to find ways to help them manage the societal stuff about who they are?
Well, just on any team, maybe Stanford. Stanford is the makeup of the student body is maybe different than I coached at Ohio State or Idaho. You're The biggest thing kind of about Stanford in recruiting is, getting through admissions, so you have to, you, in some ways Stanford self-selects. It's a type of student that wants great academics and great athletics. And so, at the beginning, our team was not that good. So we went through kind of, getting more talented, bigger, stronger players. But they've always been really, I think, great individuals, whether we had a great team or not in the beginning. Um, there's always a mix of whether it's socioeconomic, religious, racial, I mean, it's a, variety all the time. And, I kind of like a garden, it's like these are all beautiful people and beautiful flowers. And to maintain that garden, it's constant gardening. It's not just sitting on the porch in the rocking chair. You need a lot of sunshine, a lot of positive, encouraging, just your, water, some fertilizer, weeding. I mean, it all goes into, I think, just making this team a great team. And the variety is a good thing. People, enjoy meeting people that are different from them. And, so we never had a cookie cutter team. It's always a really fun variety.
And was it when you talk about the team initially, I know it wasn't great, and I don't mean to disparage it at all, but how did you have a vision of what you wanted and how on earth did you get it there?
Well, when I first went to, when I first came to Stanford, the team was, I think they'd been like 5-23 or 9-14. And I just, I just felt like there were enough great players that were great students throughout the whole country that would want to come to Stanford. I mean, it's in California, it's beautiful weather. I think the volleyball team had done well. There were so many things about it. When I first thought about taking the job, like my dad told me it's a graveyard job, and I said it involves digging, but I think it's a gold mine job. And so I think using that idea that, we're just going to work really hard. I had a great staff. I had great support from our administrator. You have fabulous academics, professors, and, this was really before professional women's basketball. This was before, the collective and the portal and all this. There was a simpler time, but it was, it took a lot of work. And, we had to, I don't want to say get lucky, but we had to get some great players, which we did. And once we got the great players, I think it's a matter of, having a system that works for them. I think we were innovative in that we used the 3-point line, which was just a new rule. Another coaches didn't use it. And we had fun, I think, there's a lot of confidence and fun.
And when you recruit, when you look at a player, and I mean this very specifically, how do you look at them? What are you looking for? And how do you see possibility and measure that against the reality of where they are in that moment, where they come from, what they expect, etc.? Like, how do you evaluate if someone's going to be right for your team and what they could be?
Well, quite honestly, I'm not really the best evaluator. I had a great assistant coach that was her strength. And, so like I watched the game a lot in the how people play together, and she could see like this person is going to be, this person will fit at Stanford. And first of all, they had to get in. So our pool was small. So once we knew that, boy, this player is someone we want. Do they have grades? Yes, we can recruit them. No, we can't recruit them. So there's no gray area with that. But we were really fortunate. And I did see some players. It just, when I watched, you watch so much basketball, like I watched so much basketball, that you can see that this person stands out in a way that it will fit together in what you want to do. And we wanted to play up tempo style. We wanted to shoot threes. We wanted versatile players. So we I think early on, again, used the 3-point line and developed a system that was kind of positionless basketball that is now kind of all the rage, but we were doing it like 30 years ago. So,
And with the way that you evolved your coaching and the player's style, I mean, I'm sure you can tell if you win a game or not, something worked, but I imagine there's more minutia to that because you're experimenting and you're sort of trying to figure out what you're going to do. How did you evaluate if your coaching strategy was something you wanted to continue forward with, or if you felt like, ooh, this doesn't work, I'm not going to pursue this methodology?
Mm. Well, I'm not afraid to like you can't be like, changing things constantly. I mean, I think you have to think things through and, you know the players on your team, in the spring, so you develop things like you might like we've changed offenses a couple times and we have done it in a time when maybe we're going to take an international trip so we get more games, we get more practice. It's not constantly throwing spaghetti on the wall to see if it sticks. It's really knowing what the strengths, I say maximize our team's strengths and minimize their weaknesses, figure out what is it that they're good at and, give them a chance to look good, make them look good. There are teams that, you have a deep team and you have a very athletic team. You might be able to do one thing, whereas if you have maybe we had a bunch of injuries where in the kind of the middle of the year, we had to kind of walk it up the court and just because we had to play one player basically the whole game. So you make adjustments during the season.
Oh, interest. So it is a constantly evolving target,
Yeah.
even though you have a an approach and a sort of formula, for lack of a better word, for how you want to do things. It constantly shifts.
Well, I think that you hit on a key word. A formula is exactly what you have. I call it the Stanford way. Like this is how we're going to do things, and certain things are not going to change. Just it might be just like we're gonna. This is the style we want to play. This is we want the unselfish teamwork. We're always looking for the best shot. We play what we call scouting report defense, where we want to take away the other team's best players. And people buy into playing this way and we're successful. And if they don't, we're not successful or we make changes in the personnel.
And in terms of the people supporting you, how does that help you evolve as a coach? Or is it more that everything's sort of siloed, where like you have someone who's good at recruiting, so you don't need to deal with that. You have someone maybe who's good at managing the players behind the scenes, so you don't have to deal with that. Or how does your team work with you at the head of it?
We would meet every day in our office suite. We had a conference room and basically we would talk about things and I might have an idea and would get shot down. I mean, like we all would talk and we would all really hash things out like for 2 hours at least, and watching video and talking about going through each player, how they can help our team, kind of where they're at, maybe academic, whatever the situation, really kind of going through everything all the time, getting ready for the opponents. So there was a lot of communication about what we're doing. I would say the staff that I worked with, people I don't micromanage. Like I had great staff people that just, they knew what they had to do and they'd get it done. And then we would just talk things out. And then we didn't always agree on everything, but when we left the room to work with our team on the court, this is how we're going to do it. And when the whole staff was on the same page, that worked really well. And when they weren't, then we would have problems.
And were you the one to come in and fix those problems?
I would try, but sometimes it would be like this is not working, so we have to make changes, and we would make changes to then, get people that would be on, I think it's really important for a team that the coaches, head coach, assistant coaches, trainer, strength coach, all that, they're on the same page. And a team, young people will know if they're not. And so, so it's first coaching that first circle of assistants and, SID, all the people that touch the team, and then it's the team.
Well, in hearing you talk about it, it really sounds like this sort of profound organism, right? Like it's not just the game or just this player or winning or whatever. It's like a very involved structure with all these different pieces having to all work together, but not just the team, right? All the support staff and the incidental and the organization and the intent. And that's interesting to me because I don't know if I have encountered that with other people in sport quite the way that you're talking about it. Like it sounds very communal, if that's an okay word, like that everyone has a voice, everyone's allowed to have input, and then the idea is always what's best for the whole, not what's best for this one star player or even you and your ego and your winning, right? Like which is also I think something people would contend with because you've done so well for so long.
Well, I think it is. I won't say it's like a democracy because, we don't vote on things, although we might vote on a couple things, but I think I work best with a lot of input from smart people. And I worked with, just people that were better at certain things than I was. And I would respect that they're better at it and respect their opinion. But there were some times where I'd have to say, well, no, we're going to do it this way. You know, I guess to me again, it would come back to kind of like more of an extended family, that you are, you're as the head coach, I kind of have to take on making a lot of decisions, but I'm not in charge of every single thing. So, assistants have great, they have responsibility, and they know their jobs and they do them. And then other people too, our trainer, and if things, if we felt off track, then I would have to say, wait a minute, this is what I need you to do, and kind of hopefully get everybody back together.
But also there's a very sort of profound admonishment of ego, which I think is very interesting in a leadership position. That
Mhm.
it really is not about you to a certain extent. It's
Right.
about the
It's
whole.
it's about our team being successful and players having a great experiences, coaches enjoying working, that we go to the gym and have fun. We turn on the music and we really enjoy being in the gym together, and that we're really out to accomplish something really special together, knowing that you only have the same team like in college 1 year. You're never going to have the same team again, and that with this group of people, we want to do something really special. And when you are able to do that, it's really fun, you
And
know?
I was wondering because you've won so much, right? You've made this team a
Mhm.
beacon for Stanford. But I wonder, what does winning actually really mean to you? Because I can't imagine it means the trophies. I would imagine it means something different.
Well, I think first of all, coming to Stanford, the idea that it was a graveyard job, to win a national championship in 5 years, was very exciting. But what made it special was the people on the team, and the relationships that you have with these people, and that I still have with these people. Talk to them, or email with them, or text with them, or whatever. And they've obviously gone on to their adult lives, but that we won a national championship, and it was really exciting. Or coaching the Olympic team, going all over the world. We worked very hard. People were very challenged, but we won a gold medal. And we were the foundation for 8 gold medals. So that's pretty exciting. Um, but I think it's the friendships that you develop, the relationships, because you go through tough times with people, and that you stick together with them, and then you're closer.
Right.
You have these really strong connections, and the connections are what I think are really are what are special.
Right. And what is, to that point, the velvet hammer and how do you use it?
Uh, I don't feel like I necessarily have to. I think that when you are working with players, that you have, like if you think of a great teacher that you had, you wanted them to see you, and that you wanted to please them. And that's, as a coach, when you have like great players, the best players I've ever coached, I've never had, I don't have a bad day with. It's not like you ever have to, you're rarely disciplining, because they regulate themselves, um, and the, is you challenge them, so it's not like you're disciplining or yelling at them. You're challenging them to be the best they can be, and they like that.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, I really enjoy hearing you talk about this because part of what's pervasive in your point of view is this sort of idea of doing better and the positivity of that, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Where you're not looking for the failure or the not, you're really looking for, okay, how do we get to the point of being exceptional? And how do
Right.
you sort of help them get there?
Right.
And do you feel like you saw that in the coaches that you watched earlier in your career? Do you feel that's something that you took from other people, or was that an adaptation of yourself?
Um, no, I mean, I think I'm constantly watching and learning from a lot of different situations that I'm in. Um, so, as an example, um, as a young girl, in the summer, I became a swim teacher. Like that was my first job. Um, to be a swim instructor. And so there was a woman on the staff who I really looked up to and admired, and she had been a teacher and had been one of my teachers. And so I asked her to come to my first swim lesson with my little pollywog kids, and they're in the kind of, it wasn't in a pool, it was in a lake. So they're in there. I'm on the dock and they're right in the lake and they're swimming. And so I had my lesson plan and just their strokes that they were going to do and everything. And so like 30 minutes of them in the pool, in the water and everything. And so then I asked her to come watch me give this lesson. And so um, she said, "Oh, that, you had the lesson all planned out. You really described the stroke really well." She went on and on. And then, but at the end she said, "Tara, you'll never be a really good teacher unless you get in the water with them." And it was a really good lesson for me. And just like you've got to meet people where they are and kind of get in the trenches with them. So I think that there's all these things that I've learned all the way along the line that stick with me. My piano teacher, my swim instructor, I sailed with two brothers that they could off the boat, they might kill each other, I mean, like they would, brothers, how they brothers fight, but on the boat, I mean, it was like, like I would be like, we're winning this race, it was just like, so, you gotta put things aside to win. And so like I don't know, I like it. I enjoy the journey, and I learned that because we've had injuries and we've been ranked number one and lost games that we shouldn't have lost maybe, but just to like kind of really enjoy the day in the gym today with these players.
Interesting. And I really, and this is part of why I was so excited to talk to you, is I just think that you seem like a very unusual person in what you do, not just in basketball, but just in the way that you've been able to coalesce and bring together and improve like year after year after year. I mean, it's really interesting to think about what your approach to life is,
Hmm.
because that's got to be the thing that's informed all of this, right? And you seem to have a very unique approach to life. And I'm wondering, like, as a woman, especially as someone who grew up in the 50s, did you get any pushback, any gendered pushback on who you are? And I know female basketball players sometimes have horrible things said about them, and they have some really unfair and unpleasant sort of media things. And I'm curious, like, how do you manage that for yourself and for them? Because it seems like a very unjust part of the experience of being exceptional at this sport.
Well, I think of myself probably growing up in the 60s more than the 50s, even
Okay.
though I was born in the 50s. But girls athletics was not what it is now at all. So, if anything, what I was fortunate with is that like my parents and my community, all the girls were active. Like my next door neighbor was a great skier. My another I mean, and wherever I was, I mean, like I grew up with a world, like a champion sailor and skier and, swimmer. So it wasn't being like you might get called a tomboy or something like that. And I think there's definitely been a lot of like homophobia associated with women's sports. That's definitely, part of that. But, um, you know, the, um, the Title IX and the acceptance of girl sports, I think, totally outweighs any negativity. And fighting for resources, gym time, trainers, assistant coaches. That's been a battle, But I think fortunately, a lot of fathers have the same attitude that like my dad did, where he said, kind of like, like if we sat down to dinner, I have a brother and, sisters, and if we sat down to dinner, it wasn't like my brother got steak and my sisters got hot dogs, like if we were having steak, everybody got steak. If we're having hot dogs, everybody had hot dogs. So I think that's been the biggest thing is, the sharing of resources, and that's a challenge. But the challenge that seems to be more than anything. There would be painful times when they'd have teams for boys and not for girls. They'd have there was just gender stereotyping of sports are for boys, cheerleading is for girls, and I really hope that we're really past that, and that our society and parents see the value of sports for both boys and girls.
And so, like, when you look at something like the WNBA, which, players are not paid the same amount. I understand they don't have the level of fandom, but it's also been around far less time. Like, sort
Right.
of, what are your hopes there? What do you think is possible? And how do you think that sort of changed the possible reality for not only the women playing it, but the women watching it?
Well, there's right now, I mean, I think, when the WNBA first came out in 1997, there was a lot of enthusiasm. Actually, the ABL had folded, so there was a pro team that folded before that. And their salaries were maybe two or three times what the WNBA was. The WNBA is a business. What I think that what has to happen, a lot of the money that goes into, as an example, the NBA comes from television. Where does television get that money? It's from sponsorships. Where does sponsorships? That's corporate money. So I think we as women and men just say like, well, what if you're a corporation and you're going to support the NBA, are you supporting the WNBA? If you're not, I'm not going to buy your product. So it's really understanding who are the corporate sponsors of women's sports to help us grow women's sports. Yes, we are behind, but in talking with, I was on a panel last week actually with a world-renowned sports economist, Roger Knoll, and he flat out said in the next 15 years, the economic growth is going to come in women's sports. It's because we have such upside. Whether it's basketball, whether it's volleyball, women's volleyball held a game last year. I think it was Nebraska where they had like 90,000 people. It was in the football stadium. Women's basketball, Iowa did the same thing. Caitlin Clark effect has brought the whole WNBA up a notch. The Olympics bringing up a notch. Softball is huge spectator sport, probably more so than college baseball. So, the swimming, women's sports in the Olympics they're the money makers. So it's not just about football. In our country, a lot of it is about football. But, soccer, the history, we as women sports have sometimes taken two steps forward and then we take one step back. So we're constantly kind of making up ground. But a lot of it is related to the corporate support that is, put into television. So because that's the television money.
Do you have any power to leverage for that at all? Or like as a coach, that's not how it works? Or are you now in your sort of slower season of life? Is that something that you can move the needle on, or that has to be just consumers?
Well, I think it's an education a little bit, if you and it's already happened. Like here's an example. I don't know if you followed this, but last year the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournament happened on the same weekend. The television ratings for women's basketball were higher than the men's television ratings. There were 18 million people, and it was, I want to say almost double of men's, but they might have been more around 12. But it was the first time that the women's ratings were higher than the men's ratings, and I think that gets like television ratings gets people's attention if you're an advertiser because you're like, well, wow. So we're seeing more women doing advertising. You see Caitlin Clark or Juju Watkins or Sue Bird or Chineo Gumake, they're doing big ads, State Farm ads, Angel Reese doing McDonald's ads. So that is I think the next frontier for women's sports in a way is to crack the media and market. Now, another thing that's really helping women's sports is social media because women are very engaged in social media and have huge followings, and that contributes to their. Are you familiar with NIL, name, image, and likeness? So college athletes can now market themselves. They have a brand. They own their name, image, and likeness. So they can now have a Nike ad. Like there's a huge poster of Juju Watkins in LA, up on the side of a skyscraper. You know what I mean?
They're called spectaculars, those particular ads.
Yeah, and they are spectacular, but they did it a long time ago for Don Staley in Philadelphia. So that was like over, 30 years ago, or 25 years ago. But we again, we have these great female athletes and that push the needle and then we fall back. Cheryl Miller was spectacular, or all these different players, of women's basketball players that were so spectacular. And then, and now Caitlin Clark has come along and things have really exploded, which is great. Now we need to keep building on that.
Can you tell if a player is going to capture the public's imagination when you see them, or that's sort of a magic thing?
I think that's a little bit of magic, but you can see it a little bit. Like you as a coach, you can say, wow, this is a great player, but sometimes the the timing is everything, like Caitlin Clark in Iowa, was Cheryl Miller was in LA. I mean, it's just, but we are seeing great progress for the kind of household name of women's sports, the and in some ways, men's sports, because, football, you have a helmet on, so you really can't see the football players that much. But for men's sports, a lot of times, they're not staying their 4 years in college, so they don't develop this reputation. They go pro early, and then you never really hear about them. So in some ways, women's ability to stay in school is helpful. And just the fact that there's a lot of people watching now, and I think it's great.
No, and I really, it's very interesting to hear all this because, of course, the hope is, right, that this becomes the powerhouse that you think it can be, and it allows so many other women opportunity.
Right.
That would really be great.
Well, one other little thing, just like for Caitlin Clark as an example,
Yes.
you started the question about, in their income, the salaries. The salary that Caitlin Clark gets from playing professional basketball is 1% of her income.
Really?
Yeah,
It's all endorsements?
endorsements, right? And yeah, I mean,
Wow.
speaking or, other things that she'll do.
Wow. And to digress for a moment, because I've tried to find Cheryl Miller, I'd love to hear your take on her, because I think she is also extraordinary.
She is.
And if you don't mind, if we could digress, I would love to know
Sure.
what you think about her.
She was just a phenomenal player who not only was so talented, but she was charismatic and, just a show woman in a great way. We played against her when I was here at Stanford, and we were up playing against her team, and we were up 6-2 or something, and I was hoping the lights would go out, and I think she ended up with 40 points in the game or something. She's phenomenal. She was unstoppable. What happened? She got hurt after she was playing. She had an ACL injury, and at the time, I don't think that they had really good surgeries get athletes back. Now they can get them back in 5 months, but she went on to coach a little bit, and um, she was, I think, one of the um, kind of pioneer all-American, I call her generational players. She was a generational player, along with someone like Lucia Harris, who played at Delta State, someone like Ann Myers, who was a four-time All-American at UCLA, Nancy Lieberman, Lynette Woodard, who was the scoring leader until Caitlin Clark broke that record.
Well, with Cheryl in particular, she's one of those ones where I do think about timing, where I'm like, if you had been born later,
Yes, yeah.
the world would have been sort of infinite for you.
Well, yeah, and it was, it was timing is everything, and her timing, but there were great players. There have always been these great players all along that have not they didn't have social media, people didn't know about them. They weren't on television, so people didn't watch them play. But that happened, I think, too, with the men, so it wasn't just women players. I mean, there were great male players that we've never heard about.
Interesting. And why do you think that? There must have been some sort of difference there, though. What do you think the difference was for them? Just that there was someone shinier, or was it something else?
No, no, just not timing. I mean, it was too early. There was a long time where people didn't really care about basketball in the way that we do now. Sports has taken on a whole life of its own. We have more leisure time. We have all these things have contributed. For sports, for women's sports, you've got more social acceptance of women playing sports. You have social media, you have television, you have the opportunity for them to do advertisements. There's just more development of their skills through basketball camps and, AAU basketball, things like that. So,
Do you find that the ego then has become harder to manage, or do you think it just increases opportunity and you don't have to manage the ego in that way?
I've never really worried about managing egos, to be honest with you. I coached the Olympic team with the absolute best players in the world, and they said to me when I first took the job, because I was a college coach, they said, "Well, now, Tara, are you going to have problems coaching these professionals?" And I said, "No, not at all. I'll have trouble coaching them if they're amateur. A professional athlete, the greatest players, whether it's Dawn Staley or Teresa Edwards or the players that I had on the team, Ruthie Bolton, Lisa Leslie, Katrina McLean, these players want to win and they want to be great. And, sometimes they might battle you a little, like they're just, oh, wow, we're working so hard, but there's a side of them that, is really proud of being strong and proud of really competing at the highest level and being, just being a great, great player. They want greatness. They want excellence.
Is there a player that you saw in your time at Stanford that you sort of remember where you just thought, wow? Like, is there a singular one where it was sort of a transformative moment where you thought, like, what I can do with this player is really incredible, or it doesn't work that way?
I've coached just a lot of really phenomenal players. Um, just I mean, just so many. I mean, just I have coached so many to single one out. I mean, I've had that wow, um, like feeling so many times with so many players that they just like not that they surprise you, but just that they impress you. They're just like, wow, they are playing so hard. They find a way to win. Like they'll just, they're so gritty. So I really feel like I've learned so much from the players I've coached. And I kind of not that not that I necessarily keep a notebook, I do, but like a mental notebook of, this is leadership, this is grit, this is, and I have all like a story for each, this is someone dealing with a real tough situation and they get through it, or, this is just all the things that determination or perseverance or unselfishness. So they all fit in these little buckets.
Is it hard to let them go at the end?
There are some that is really hard. Yeah, but you're not ever letting them go. You're just like knowing that like they're going to go play professional, or they're going to go to medical school, or they're going to go to law school. A lot of them go to law school.
Why
But
is that? Do you have, is there,
no, I don't know. But you're excited for them, it's like you're a proud parent, you're really proud of them, and you're excited to see them, and then you keep in touch with them. And it's not all of them, and it's just like your normal curve. Probably you're really close to some and you're less close to others. So,
and after, what, close to 60 years of doing basketball intensely, what is it that you either still love or most love about the sport at this point?
I love seeing a great game. Like I watched a really good game the other night. Stanford had. I like unselfishness. I like up tempo. I like enthusiastic players. I like a well coached team that they play with a purpose. Like when like they make their free throws, they make their layups. They're a skilled team. And that there's joy in the gym, and that people are really appreciate, they appreciate the excellence that's happening out there. And those are fun games to go to. I like watching the professional Warriors team. I like basketball, like a certain style of basketball. I don't like one-on-one, just total pick and roll, sloppy. I don't like. I just like it a certain way.
Yeah. And it
Picky.
sounds like you do still love it.
I do. I love it. I mean, I plan my day around when the game's on.
Are you still going to Stanford and watching your team?
Yeah, I do. I do. I watch all their games at home.
Is it hard to not be there?
It is hard. The first time was really going to the gym was really weird. You adjust to it a little bit. You develop a new routine, but you know, it's I love being at practice. I think I love practice more than the games. But you know, um, it's just I love being in practice, and just figuring out like what are we going to work on today, and what are we going to get better, and to see the improvement that the players make. That's what's most rewarding.
Where do you put all this energy and all this intent now?
Well, I'm teaching a basketball class. It's fun. I do that. I probably speak at least once a week to groups on campus or outside of campus, about leadership and teamwork. Working on a book. Actually, one kind of was already written, and then there's another one that I'm working on. And I meet with coaches, and I work in the development office a little bit to fundraise for our program.
Do you have a
So
hobby besides the piano? Is there something else you're putting it all into?
I play bridge. I like to play bridge, and I'm going to improve my bridge games. And, I have a beautiful lab that I walk every day. And, I don't know, I have great days. In the summer, I'm a summer person. I love to water ski and sail and, read. So, yeah, every day's fun.
I'm so glad. I mean, again, you're a very unusual coach, and I really, really love getting to talk to you about how you see the world and who you are, because I think it really, like, the love and support that is clear in how you do what you do. I find it like very moving. Like, it's not just
Thank you.
number one, make the money, win the thing, but it really is, again, you creating a little ecosystem for all these
Mhm.
players, and figuring out how to get them all to be their better selves. Because, like, who wouldn't love to be supported by someone who wants you to be your best?
Yeah, it is. I've never really. I mean, I never said, "Oh, I got to go to work today." I've always. loved going to the gym. And, it's not to say that you're not dealing with, challenging players on the team sometimes, or challenging, you have injuries, you have, people that don't see it the same way that you do. And you just have to you have to figure that out. But I have been very fortunate to have lived a magical life, and I love every minute of it. So just kind of try to keep going.
Good on you, man. I think
All
it's
right.
wonderful. I really appreciate you. We'll get
Sure
this one
thing.
moving for the pod, but have a wonderful week and thank you so much.
All righty. Take
All
care.
right.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Nice to meet you.
You
Bye-bye.
too.